It is a big idea, a new world order.
Your world is not what it seems. Alex Ansary, Outside the Box.
Welcome to another mind-expanding, belief system-challenging edition of Outside the Box TV, your weekly outlet for not only the news behind the news, but fresh, unique perspectives on not only what's going on globally, but galactically, especially with shows like we have planned for you tonight with our guest, Stuart Swirlo. I'm Alex Ansary, your host, coming to you live from Portland, Oregon, now in our 6th year, September 19th, 2010. And tonight, of course, we're shelving our weekly news roundup to make special space, special time for a very interesting, very intriguing guest. A person that I discovered a couple weeks ago, a man that has a story that's so intriguing, we can't possibly get into all the things that he's experienced in 1 hour's time, but we'll do our best to cover what we can. Tonight, I ask you to suspend any knee-jerk reaction of disbelief that's programmed into us when different information that's different outside the norm of the mainstream comes into our realm, and replace that with an open-minded look at the true nature of reality. I'm glad that Stuart could come on the show tonight. I'm going to give you a little bit of information, a quick summary on our guest this evening that joins us from the state of Michigan. A gifted medical intuitive, Stuart Swirlo is a clairvoyant who has the ability to see auric fields and personal archetypes, as well as DNA sequences and mind patterns. Now, his story is very interesting. His great uncle was the first president of the Soviet Union, and his grandfather helped form the Communist Party of the United States in the 1930s. So to ensure that his loyalties stayed within the U.S. government, he was recruited for specific government mind control experiments, which enhanced his natural abilities. Many of these were a part of the now infamous Montauk Project, which he was a part of from 1970 to 1983. His mind and body was used for genetic and mind control experiments, which led to severe illness, broken relationships, and premature Kundalini activation. After several years of deep self-analysis, Stuart merged with higher levels of his multidimensional self, which saved his life. His mission is to help others heal themselves in a positive way, thus avoiding the negativity he experienced. Following years of deprogramming, Stuart has authored several books, such as, we have graphics of these, Blue Blood, True Blood, Conflict and Creation, which gets into the true history of this galaxy from his perspective, solar system, and the planet Earth, as well as how the Illuminati began their plans for society and the Earth. He's also the author of Montauk, The Alien Connection, The Healer's Handbook, A Journey into Hyperspace, and another interesting book entitled The True Nature of Sexuality. Tonight we'll be discussing Stuart's story in more detail and this galactic history he wants to share to help shed light on Earth politics today. You can also find more information at his website, expansions.com. You can sign up for the free newsletter and also stay up to date on upcoming conferences. And again, he joins us tonight from his home in St. Louis, Michigan. Stuart, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Actually, it's St. Joseph, Michigan.
St. Joseph, Michigan. Your story is very interesting. I haven't talked before on the show about the Montauk Project at length. Give us a little bit of background information on this project.
Well, Montauk Project began in 1970, but the preliminaries leading up to it began a long time ago. It actually was an outgrowth of what happened in 1947 with the Roswell crash in New Mexico, which was actually a calling card that the Illuminati gave to the public to let them know there was an alien presence on the Earth. The human beings, unfortunately, from the Illuminati perspective, needed to have some kind of fear, some kind of enemy that they couldn't see. Of course, we had just completed the war with Germany. That was over. Now we had the Soviet Union, which was a threat. But still, they needed something to create fear and panic in humanity. And so that's when the UFOs and alien stories began in the late 40s, 50s, and 60s. And of course, the Illuminati, being a very small group of people in relation to the billions on the Earth, could not control a vast population of billions of people with just weapons and law. They needed to have mind control and programming in order to make people think a certain way and allow them to accept the laws and regulations imposed by the Illuminati. And so it was in 1970 that the Montauk Project began. It was in a derelict Air Force base on the eastern end of Long Island. This Air Force base used SAGE radar, which was popular in the 50s and 60s, which was becoming obsolete as more technology became available. So the Air Force base was scheduled for decommission. And since it was stuck out there on the eastern end of Long Island, surrounded on three sides by water, it was a perfect place to perform experimentation outside the view of a population. And so that's where Montauk Project began. This area is old. In fact, in 1799, George Washington built a lighthouse there with a storage unit underneath in case the British were to invade North America. And over the decades and centuries, it was added onto until it became 9 levels deep and many, many miles wide. And so there was a large area under the base from which they could perform many secret experimentations. It was about mind control, programming, esoteric weaponry, weather control, interdimensional experimentations, and even time travel. They also did genetic manipulations. They did sexual ritual there. Every kind of secret experiment you can imagine was performed at Montauk.
And so because of your family's history, this is why you were recruited under the Montauk Project?
Yes, and in fact, I don't even like the word recruited because it was really not a choice. You were just taken into it, and that was the end of that because my family's loyalty was questioned by the United States.
So you were forced into this, and then you had to go through some sort of deprogramming phase of your life to cleanse yourself and heal from what happened?
Well, in 1983, when the project crashed, it almost felt as if I was unplugged, and I had no semblance of conventional life, if you will. I had no idea how to act in a conventional society. And so it was a very difficult time period for me, and of course the government was not very helpful. A lot of the people who did survive Montauk wound up in mental institutions, prisons. They were derelicts on the street. Many committed suicide. There were very few that were able to continue any kind of normal life.
And so you're here today producing a number of books, going on many radio shows and TV shows across the globe, talking about what's taking place galactically. Now, let's start to move into this phase of the conversation, but at what point in your life, and how do you come to this conclusion that these things are going on? The alien conspiracy, how you became knowledgeable about the reptilians, the reptilian overlords, as they're also known. How did you move into that area?
In my 13 years at Montauk, these were common occurrences, what you just mentioned, the alien presence, reptilian beings. This was a normal experience at Montauk because of the technology that was used by the government there had its origins off-world. In fact, a lot of the technology came from Sirius A, which in the government's opinion had the highest technology available at the time. There was also an interest by reptilian beings who came from the Draco star system, as well as reptilian beings who were actually from the Earth itself. And they were controlled or interested in control of humanity because it was felt that humanity was unable to manage its own affairs, needed to be controlled from the external side.
So give us your understanding of who and what the reptilians